Hello and welcome to The Entrepreneurs on Monocle Radio, the show all about inspiring people, innovative companies and fresh ideas in global business. This week's programme is all about technological breakthroughs, from batteries to robotics. First, we'll head to Sweden to tour a gigafactory that will produce battery cells for 1 million electric vehicles every year.
If the entire automotive industry is changing into electric, there is a huge demand for battery cells.
And later, we'll meet a Romanian entrepreneur who founded a robotics and data intelligence company for the logistics industry.
You have to move fast. The ability to actually capture the market, the ability to delight your customers, and the ability to show your customers just how nimble and exciting this journey is, that's your unfair advantage.
This is The Entrepreneurs, with me, Tom Edwards. This is The Entrepreneurs, with me, Tom Edwards. We head to Sweden now. Founded by two former Tesla executives, Northvolt's emerged as one of the key players in the EV battery business. Its Northvolt Ett factory in northern Sweden is one of the largest of its kind in the world, and when fully built, it will produce battery cells for 1 million electric vehicles every year. Northvolt's mission is to supply EV makers with batteries that are both European-made and environmentally sustainable. Well, for more on this, I'm delighted to say we're joined now by our Helsinki correspondent, Petri Burtsoff, who was granted rare access to Northvolt's gigafactory in Sweden a little earlier this summer. Petri, thanks for jumping in. Great to chat to you. And I guess actually before we get into your report, which I'm looking forward to hearing, tell me a bit more about the company, because it's safe to say that since you went to visit them, they've had some tricky press. Tell us what's been going on.
Yes, so Northvolt is really the great hope of European battery production. One of the most talked about startups in Europe of the past couple of years. They've raised a staggering amount of funding, $15 billion, and they have an order book of over $50 billion. And as you said, domestic European battery production, green battery production, and reliable, sort of not relying on long global supply chains. And after I visited their factory, the Swedish media revealed in an investigation that there had been some accidents in their big factory that I visited, or some of them resulting in this. And then it was also revealed that their production capacity was quite far from what they had promised, leading to one of their clients, BMW, which is also an investor in Northvolt, to canceling one of their contracts with the company. So, a lot of negative publicity that I wasn't aware of when I visited the factory. So as a result, I reached out to the company and briefly chatted with their comms person and got some answers also from the CEO, sort of explaining these recent headlines and what their future outlook is.
Well, yeah, and just before then we dip into the report, tell me a little bit about why there hopefully is still cause for optimism. I gather they still struck a positive and upbeat tone despite these challenges, and we often say, don't we, especially in startups, that it is the times that are challenging and the bad press that's the crucible that often forms real enduring innovation. Was that the attitude and the appetite there from these follow-up conversations you had?
Yes, Tom, very much so. They're obviously extremely humble about all the accidents that have happened. They said they're cooperating with the police in the investigation. Some of these injuries and fatalities actually happen outside of the facilities of the company and have not been linked to activities in the factory, but some of them have. So they're sort of ramping up their safety precautions at the factory. But then they stress that they're still very optimistic about their product. They still believe in reaching their production capacity targets of 60 gigawatt hours per year, which is enough to power 1 million EVs. They're at a fraction of that, but they're now focusing more on getting their gigafactory in Sweden operational rather than expansion. So they're doing this, what the CEO Peter Carlson is calling a strategic review of sort of refocusing their resources on getting their one factory really fully operational before then expanding.
So Petri, let's hear the report. Tell us what we're going to hear.
Yeah, so just setting the scene for you. This factory is located outside of the Swedish town of Skellefteå in northern Sweden. Just a massive area. I visited. We drove around the whole factory area. I think it took us like 20 minutes of driving in the car, sort of in this very rural, foresty landscape of Sweden. And then you enter and you see this this like dozens of buildings, and they're just like a lot of construction work. I think the building itself, the company itself, employs about 4,000 people. But then they told me that there's another 4,000 work as subcontractors in constructing all the facilities. So this is sort of setting the scene for you, and let's hear the report.
Located just 150 kilometers south of the Arctic Circle, at the outskirts of the Swedish town of Skellefteå, Northvolt Ett is an imposing sight to behold. Occupying an area of 150 hectares and employing thousands of people, there's a good reason it has earned the label Gigafactory. Much of it is still under construction, but the factory has been up and running since the end of 2021, gradually ramping up its production capacity to reach a whopping 60 gigawatt hours in the near future. That is enough battery cells to power 1 million electric vehicles every year. And not just any kind of battery cells.
Northvolt's goal is to produce the world's greenest battery. And one of the most important things is that we run our factory on renewable energy that comes from hydropower. So that means we don't have any emissions from this factory or from our recycling factory here in Skellefteå. And that means that our products, the battery cells, have a really, really low CO2 footprint. Last year we released battery cells we've been designing together with Scania, and we did an analysis and compared it to the competitors' batteries, and our battery cell has 70% lower CO2 footprint than the competition.
That was Matti Kataja, Northvolt's Director of Communication and Public Affairs for the Nordics. As we tour the factory, its sheer scale becomes evident. The production halls are so large that they could fit several planes, and the employees often use bikes or carts to move around. Northvolt Ett is also incredibly silent and high-tech, as one would perhaps expect. A lot of the work is automated, but the factory still employs over 4,000 people that come from over 100 countries. Interestingly, many of them are Chinese, as that's where a lot of the other factories and know-how are located. I want to just get a better understanding of what the growth potential in this sector is.
One number that has been floating around in the EU is that we need 1 terawatt hours of battery production capacity. I mean, and that means that for Europe by 2030 we will need like 16 or 17 factories just like this one in Skellefteå. So, I mean, if the entire automotive industry is changing into electric, I mean, there is a huge demand for battery cells. We're in quite a sweet spot, and I mean, our order book is currently at like $50 billion. So, I mean, our customers are really eager, to get battery cells for their future needs. So that's what we are aiming for.
While ramping up its production capacity and building other similar, albeit not quite as large factories around the world, Northvolt is also pushing the battery technology to new heights.
One of the big things that's happening right now is that all the companies are looking into sodium-ion batteries. And we have just recently made a big breakthrough there, Northvolt, where we have produced a new battery cell, a new sodium-ion battery cell. The cool thing about sodium-ion is that it's cheaper, it's more sustainable, and it has other qualities that are better.
And cheaper and more sustainable, I suppose there's a quite high demand for that in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. A place we see where we can, sell these batteries is for energy storage. First and foremost in countries that has a warmer climate, because these are really durable battery cells that can take heat much better. So I mean, we're talking about India or Africa, and when they do big investments in renewable energy, they need energy storage as well, to balance that. And that is where we see a potential new market for the sodium-ion battery cells.
Northvolt's arrival has been a significant boost to this remote part of northern Sweden. It has made Skellefteå the fastest growing city in all of Sweden, and it now projects its population to grow from the 78,000 that it is today to over 100,000 in just a little over 15 years. To further decrease its environmental footprint, Northvolt wants to attract its suppliers and subcontractors to the area too.
I mean, we talk to our suppliers and we ask them to move their production or their logistics centers close to where we have production in order to reduce CO2 footprints even more. So, I mean, we see examples of that here in Skellefteå. We have a Korean company, Dongjin, who produces active material for us. They have established a factory just on the other side of the road from us. And we have other suppliers also from Asia who has built factories and centers in Sweden. That is something that we're actively working on. We want them to be close to us in order to keep emissions down.
With the automotive industry going increasingly electric, many have raised concerns about the environmental and social impact of battery production. Northvolt is the first company making EV battery cells that are designed and manufactured in Europe by a European company. By using renewable energy and by using more and more recycled materials each year, coupled with a transparent sourcing of raw materials, the Swedish company is leading the entire industry towards a more sustainable future. For Monocle in Skellefteå, Sweden, I'm Petri Burtsoff.
My thanks to Petri Burtsoff for that report, and you can find out more by heading to northvolt.com. You're listening to The Entrepreneurs. Andrei Danescu is the co-founder and CEO of Dexory, a technology provider for the logistics industry that uses robots to collect real-time data and provide complete visibility over warehouse operations. Dexory's fully autonomous mobile robots can scan up to 12,000 locations per hour, and its AI-powered platform offers unparalleled insights into inventory management. With 130 employees across the UK, US, Romania, France and Qatar, Dexory works with major clients including DB Schenker, Maersk and Menzies Aviation. Our Laura Kramer caught up with Andrei when he made a recent trip to Midori House. They discussed the company's global reach, its manufacturing and engineering operations, and Andrei's vision for the future. He began by telling Laura more about how he got started.
My background is in technology. So originally I'm from Romania. And ever since I was a small child, I grew up being very excited about technology, being very excited about technical application of knowledge. And throughout school, I was always kind of drawn into maths, physics, all the technical subjects. As I grew up, I started to kind of develop this fascination for robotics, for small kind of inventions that I would make. And I started to be very drawn into electronics. So as I went over through to uni, I started competing in various robotics challenges and making small autonomous robots that could do various tasks. And that's actually how I met my co-founder, Adrian. We were competing in one of these challenges in uni in Bucharest, and we were building autonomous robots for the challenges. A couple of years later, there was an interesting opportunity to kind of start a company that would use this kind of autonomous robots and actually collect information, collect data from different offline, let's call it, spaces, such as retail stores, such as public spaces like airports or hotel lounges and so on, and give people a live view of what's happening in these environments. Now, during the pandemic, we didn't necessarily have a huge market pull from retail, but there was a lot of interest from logistics. And it gave us this opportunity to really focus our technology and help one of the most important industries that we have currently, which is the logistics industry. So we had the opportunity to actually adapt and adopt the technology and push it over in logistics, a very interested market. We kind of jumped at the chance and started building what is Dexory today.
Was there a specific moment that you realized that you were really onto something big with the autonomous mobile robots?
I think once we started exploring the market, so we had a couple of people bringing this problem to us saying, hey, can we use your technology to digitize warehouses? And the first question we asked was, why? Why do you want to do that? Because we thought that, you would have a fairly good view of what's going on in warehouses, but the market wanted more. So I think the big aha moment was through some of the first customer demos when we actually showed them what was possible. And it really kind of catalyzes the imagination, especially when you speak to people that have spent 20, 30 years in the industry and you see the look on their face and they go, wow, I never thought this was going to be possible. So that was pretty much the aha moment for us, because we really understood the potential this technology could have for the industry. And more importantly, the value it could bring, because it's not just about running warehouses more efficiently, but it's about running the entire global logistics network or supply network in the most efficient way possible.
It seems like there were definitely people who needed it. They saw the value in it. But did you have any naysayers, people who kind of challenged what you're trying to put forward and said, how is this going to work?
I mean, there's always the late adopters, I would say, in any new technology, because what we've created was a platform that uses autonomous robots to create digital twins of warehouses. Now, there's a lot of technical jargon in there, but basically we have the world's tallest autonomous robot. It's over 12 meters tall. And you can scan and recreate over 1 million square feet and over 100,000 pallets in less than a day. And people didn't really think that was going to be possible when we started. They definitely didn't think our timelines and the time frame in which we brought this technology to market was possible. But I think the big difference there was when they saw it, when they understood that it's actually working, it completely changed their perception. So it made them flip from naysayers to thorough through and through advocates of the technology and the value it brings.
And so when we look at numbers, how many markets are you in right now? How many robots and warehouses are using this technology and using the robots?
So the technology is relatively new into the market. We've launched the product in March last year. So the first release was in February, but the first commercial deployments were March last year. Since then, we had a lot of interest from very large customers that are having a global presence. So now we are present in the UK. We've expanded across Europe. We have a good presence in the US. And we're also seeing a lot of interest, and we have the first live customers in the Middle Eastern region, in Dubai, Abu Dhabi kind of areas.
Now, because this can be applied, I guess, to various sectors like logistics, like you said, even aviation, I wondered if you could share maybe some standout success stories or case studies from these industries.
So that's definitely interesting, because I think most industries that you mentioned will operate warehouses. If you think of manufacturing, they have warehouses where they store materials and then they store finished products and so on. Same for aviation, same for the more traditional logistics providers like third-party logistics players and so on. What's interesting, or what we found interesting, is the value it brings in allowing operators to run these warehouses with, let's say, 100% efficiency, 99.999, really kind of transcends the industry and allows you to generalize across any number of specific applications. So the fact that you can know everything there is in a warehouse, know exact positions, and have the ability to maximize the utilization of that space really drives the value for the technology, like I said, in any industry. So I'll give you an example. We are operating in a warehouse for a large furniture manufacturer. And within the first 2.5 weeks of deploying our technology, we have found inventory for them that was worth over 200,000 pounds. So that's a big value driver, because again, if you think of the operation they are running, they have to keep those production lines running. We have the same thing. We are full stack, so we manufacture the robots in-house. We need to keep the production line running. So you end up accepting some inefficiency in the supply chain. Now, when we brought this technology, that was the big aha moment. They didn't have to accept the status quo. They didn't have to live with the inefficiencies. They can run their operation with maximum efficiency now.
And with a product like this, given so much intelligence is in it, do you have patents? How does it all work?
I mean, if you look at the IP and sort of like the proprietary part of our technology, I think it spans across the entire product offering. So both across the robots, like I mentioned, there's a lot of really smart technology that we put into that system, but also across the software system and how the product holistically brings value to customers. So there's a lot of work that we've done, and there's years of research that have gone into creating a system that can, like I mentioned, operate autonomously, but also process this information and bring value in such a short amount of time from first deployments. We, of course, have a number of patents. We're always looking at expanding our patent portfolio, but intellectual property is probably quite a broad topic, because it's not just patents, it's also your trade secrets, your knowledge, your unique methodologies and processes and systems of actually bringing that product to market.
You make it sound so easy, and yet I know that it definitely is not, but especially because between you and your other two co-founders, you have other stakeholders at play. How do you navigate the different, I guess, objectives of everybody involved in the operation?
It's not easy. I would never say this is easy. It's one of those overnight successes that only took us 10 years to become an overnight success. But to build a full stack company like we have is inherently a complex operation. So having software development, having engineering, having product development, manufacturing, all actual production lines in-house, it takes a big operational toll. So it requires a very high level of operational excellence. We also have a very, very wide range of suppliers. So exactly like you mentioned, it's important to make sure that everyone believes in the mission, believes in the vision and why we want to bring this technology into the world. Because it's difficult, because the time frames that we work to are very short, we want to make sure that everyone understands and will deliver the right level of quality and the right level of performance for the parts and the input they have into the product.
Thinking about funding and backing from investors, is it true that you raised, $19 million in funding?
A little bit more than that.
A little bit more than that.
That was the last round we just
You're
raised,
just
yeah.
being a little bit modest about that. But I wonder, what are you looking at? Is it the next phase of a development? Is it the expansion, the scaling? What are you most looking into?
So I think it really depends based on the stage you are at, like as a business. To go a couple of years back, before we raised the first round with institutional investor, with VCs, we had to prove a lot of different milestones and points to make sure that investors have this technology de-risked enough for them to put their money in. So we used a lot of public funding. We used grants to actually build that core foundational technology. Then it allowed us to raise the first round with our pre-seed round with VCs. That was quite challenging because, again, operational complex businesses are not the easiest to fund. So you have to make sure that you find the right investors that are aligned to the stage of growth that you are at as a company. You also want to make sure that you raise enough money to allow you to reach the next major milestones, because one of the difficult situations you could find yourself into as you're building a business as a founder or as a CEO or whoever is in charge responsible of finances is if you need to raise money when you're sort of in between stages, because it gets really difficult. Earlier stage investors, it's a little bit too late for them. And then the later stage investors, it's too early, so they want to see more proof points. So you always have to calibrate quite well, make sure that you have the right amount of resources available to allow you to do what you need to do. And for us, for example, this 19 million that you mentioned, we raised it last year. And at that point in time, it was full steam ahead. We had the first customers with the product on site. And what we did is we wanted to move as fast as we can. My background is motorsport, so I spent some time working in Formula One and other kind of high-speed disciplines. So I may be a little bit more biased to speed for my own, which is a little bit too much for my own good, to be honest. But in a company, in a startup, speed is life. You have to move fast. That's your unfair advantage, the ability to actually capture the market, the ability to delight your customers, and the ability to show your customers just how nimble and exciting this journey is one of the big things.
And how do you balance the need for that speed, the need for speed, so to say, and also making sure you get it right? Because you don't want to get too ahead of yourself and then you put something forward that has flaws, that maybe doesn't work exactly how you want it. How do you navigate that balance?
It's a difficult one. It's a difficult balance to find, to strike. I think one of the most important things is to embrace the fact that you're not going to create the perfect product. Nobody in this world can create the perfect product. I mean, if you look at Apple, and I'm not choosing Apple as a brand because they're necessarily great, but they have a phenomenal amount of R&D budget, billions of dollars, and they still don't make the perfect product. It's an iterative process. That's why it's engineering. It's not a magical idea that happens overnight. It's about the continuous improvement. So first, in order to achieve that level of speed, very much similar to the kind of fuel you need to put in a fast car, it takes a lot of resources. So it is expensive to move fast. And to make sure that you can actually get as high a quality as you can, you want to, at least what we do is we run multiple experiments in parallel, because there's certain things that take a certain amount of time to happen. But if you can run 10 experiments in parallel, you get a lot faster or a lot faster, as close as you can to the answer of that question.
And how do you see, I guess, the long-term vision for Dexory? Because the role of robotics, AI are constantly evolving, especially in the logistics and supply chain industry. What do you see is next?
So one of the big parts of our vision and our mission as a company is we want to create the most efficient supply network at the global level. So we envision having Dexory View operating in every single warehouse in this world, because that will allow anyone to access that highest threshold of operational excellence and efficiency. So they can run any warehouse anywhere in the world with any kind of operational setup or layout they want. And that makes us a lot better as a species. We can do a lot more good to the planet. We can avoid wasted resources. We can avoid long queues of refrigerated trucks in 40 degrees Celsius waiting for them to be loaded up. Genuinely, we can make a much better and a positive impact at the global level by using this technology and sharing these learnings with everyone.
And you mentioned milestones before, and I wondered, what are some milestones that you hope to achieve within the next few years for the company?
I think the next few years is quite a broad
Let's say 2 years from now.
Yeah, I mean, in 2 years, we want to have expanded our locations, our offices to be present in multiple territories, to be established and present in multiple territories. Like I said, this technology is relatively new into the market. End of this year, we're going to be above the 100 plus locations live with customers. I think we definitely want to break our own records. So currently we have obviously the world's tallest autonomous robot, but we want to build on that and make sure that we always become better. We can always do more with the technology we have. We can run the technology in multiple types of warehouses, in any type of warehouse. So there's a number of milestones. Again, without going too deeply into them, I would say this global presence is very important for us, but also making sure that the wider industry understands the impact real-time data is going to have on any type of logistics operation. But I would also say that a big part for us is making sure that the wider industry understands the advantages that artificial intelligence, autonomous robotics, all these new technologies can really have on their day-to-day way of running the business.
And when you think back on the young Andrei, who was very fascinated with technology and robots and all those geeky little kid things, what do you think has been the most rewarding part of the journey so far, and what makes you kind of pinch yourself about everything?
Wow, that is indeed that's a difficult question, I would say. I think at the end of the day, the journey is hard. I'm not gonna lie. This is, and then anyone building anything will understand that. It's not easy. But I think when you see the achievements, when you see, for me at least, when I see the speed at which we're moving as a company, and the amount of cutting edge projects and cutting edge technologies that we can actually bring into the world, this is really what makes me get out of bed in the morning. Like working on this unique product and being able to bring so much value to such an important industry is one of the most rewarding things for me. I never actually thought we're gonna have the ability to create this incarnation of the product that's gonna bring such a disproportionate amount of value to customers.
That was Andrei Danescu, the co-founder and CEO of Dexory, and you can find out more about the business by heading to dexory.com. And that's all for this episode of The Entrepreneurs. We'll be back at the same time next week. Do look out for Eureka. That's coming your way every Friday. The Entrepreneurs was produced by Laura Kramer with audio editing by Jack Dewars. You can listen again and find out more about the show at monocle.com. That's where you can subscribe to Monocle magazine and read more about better businesses every month. You can also follow us and catch up with the archive via your preferred podcast platform. If you'd like to get in touch with the team, email Laura on lrk@monocle.com. I'm Tom Edwards. Goodbye and thanks for listening to The Entrepreneurs.